What's good, YouTube? Baldock Studios here, and today we're going to go over a video that popped into my feed that is called The Unreal Way. I got curious. You guys know I've been developing in Unreal for a really long time, and it basically had a logo or a thumbnail that was like perfection, The Unreal Way. So let's get into it. Let's see what this video is about. I've had a little bit, I'll be honest, I had a little bit of a peek of the video, and it was so entertaining that I figured let's do this together, shall we?
Hello there, fellow game developer. You were sent this video to help you with your Unreal Engine onboarding process. Unreal is one of the best known engines in the industry, responsible for next-gen advancements such as Nanite, MetaHuman, and Lumen, amongst many others. All of this packed in the feature-rich and intuitive Unreal Editor, where if you want to delete an asset, you cannot press enter to...
Yeah, you have to use your mouse here. This is funny. Alright, so I'm going to keep this short and sweet, but a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, we've both been developing in Unreal. Our day job consists of Unreal. And, lately in the Baldock Studios Discord and in the YouTube channel, you guys have noticed that I've basically taken an interest in Godot. I've actually contributed to Godot 4.5 dev. When 4.5 releases, I'll have multiple PRs that have gone in for different fixes or features, and I'm pretty excited and proud to be a part of that community, so woohoo. But one of the things that my colleague says is like, Godot has quirks. Like there's little, things, edge cases here and there that, he's having a little bit of trouble getting down with or whatever. And I'm like, and Unreal doesn't? So, there's a lot of things that this guy is about to mention that I'm just like, these issues, and I'm not trying to crap on Unreal. Again, I love Unreal Engine, but these things don't exist in Godot. Godot does have its weirdness, but usually things are pretty consistent in its behavior.
To confirm your action. It is way more time effective to move your cursor over that red button and click it every single time. But if you change your mind, you can press the escape icon also with your mouse. Because Unreal is all about consistency. And speaking of which, if you're used to a different interface layout from other engines, you can customize Unreal's interface, allowing you to place windows wherever you want them to be. However, you're likely wrong, and you'll be reminded of this when you try to close the engine with unsaved changes. Your custom window placements are now gone, and next time you open the editor, you'll be reminded that you should get used to do things the Unreal way.
Yeah, so the problem that he did is he didn't use the editor's built-in snapping point. It's not about, like, he freeformed his window placement, and I know that should not matter, but the application doesn't understand how to replace his layout because he freeformed it inside of Windows, not utilizing the snapping utility inside of...
You can, however, go here, and reload your hopefully previously saved layout, as long as you're okay doing that every single time you open the editor. Since 1998, when it was first introduced, the Unreal Engine went through 5 generational updates over the course of 27 years. That being said, we are not afraid to push boundaries and set new industry standards, such as when you grab the transform gizmo and pull towards yourself, the object naturally goes further. Research has shown that this is most likely what developers want.
That's funny. So it doesn't do that every time. Which he may go over, but he was probably, there's a specific angle in which your mouse is inverted in the 3D viewport. Just something we all know.
Unreal Engine is really good at predicting your intentions. For example, if you have a long collision box and you uniformly scale it down, Unreal knows that you actually wanted the cube all along, so it gets rid of those pesky uniform proportions for...
It doesn't do this on everything either. This is only on when you're trying to, like, create like custom collision shapes in the collision editor. But yes. So funny.
For you. Let's see if you've been paying attention. Quiz time. If you grab the center of this scale gizmo and pull your mouse down, what do you think will happen? That is correct. The object becomes bigger. That's not to be mistaken by that same action, but from this slightly different perspective, in which case the object becomes smaller. It might seem a little difficult, but
no, this is just confirming the thing I just said. It depends on the angle of the viewport where the mouse may become inverted. Fun fact is, like right after, if you go back to Unreal Engine 5's release, you can actually, in UE4, you've never been able to make your viewport camera go upside down. But in 5.0, you can, like, one of the bugs they had is they did some camera enhancements, and you could literally like make your viewport camera go all the way upside down, and then everything becomes inverted or inversed. But yeah, that's just a fun little fact there.
Trust us, this is the Unreal way. Let's take perspective out of the equation and go into the 2D viewport. From here, we can pick any camera orientation we want. So let's pick front. You will notice that once you do this, the editor will start.
Okay, so over here on the right hand side, his preview settings is what's causing this to happen, that in combination with like his directional light angle and lumen and what's called eye adaptation. So he could fix this easily by turning off eye adaptation so it doesn't do this, but he's likely going to go into like unlit mode or something.
Aggressively flash at you. This means that you made it angry, but we can easily fix this by changing the light mode. Now that we are in the 2D viewport, we can zoom in a little, but keep in mind that zooming in will get rid of the transform gizmo because good developers should be able to work from afar. However, sometimes the more you zoom in, the more that transform gizmo gets disassembled. It might take a little time, but very soon you'll master exactly what gizmo to use and where. For example, this combined movement gizmo.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, that is something that annoys me versus Unity and Godot is Unreal has like specific, like, why does that have to change? I don't get it, but yeah, like it feels like everyone else's gizmo is universal, and depending on where you grab and how you utilize it, it does specific things in every viewport. But for whatever reason, Unreal does a really horrible job at movement control.
Works on this, but not on this, unless you use the other movement gizmo, in which case we're good. Unreal Engine was actually developed by Epic Games, which was founded 34 years ago by Team Sweeney, and it employs over 4,350 people to this day. This is actual footage of one of those developers working on Unreal Engine, dragging a selection box to highlight multiple assets, which is something you cannot do in the content browser, because that would be heathen behavior. You can, however, use a selection box to select things in the 2D viewport by simply clicking and dragging. This is a feature we've added sometime in Unreal 1, as you can see on this roadmap. Roughly 15 years later, we decided to also allow you.
Quick little tip. There's a hotkey to switch between perspective mode and front, back, side, whatever. And that's usually what people like. It's so funny. That's the Unreal way. That's what we do to switch into a non-perspective friendly multi-select mode. Even though I do agree, you probably should have a friendlier method than what we currently have for the 3D view selection box.
You to use this feature in the 3D viewport as well, by requiring you to press an additional hotkey compared to the 2D action. Here at Epic Games, we like to switch around what hotkeys do depending on where exactly on the screen you clicked last time to make sure you're paying attention. Now you know how to drag a selection box in both the 2D and 3D viewports, but of course, there is no selection box inside the Blueprints viewport because...
Alright, so... Hopefully, this call out actually gets something done about this. Even as a I haven't tested 5.6 preview for this yet. Just haven't had a lot of time. Plus, I've been doing a lot of Godot work. But I want to say, even as a 5.5, the Blueprint viewport and Blueprint hierarchy management is still to this day horrible. Horrible. I hope he goes over some of this, but yeah, like, yeah, you're gonna have to hold the control key here. Shift doesn't work. Drag selection doesn't work. Parent hierarchy is still fumbled to mess him back about like where you're placing things. Yeah, this is not a prefab. Like, Epic's defense to this is going to be, well, blueprints aren't really prefabs, you know? And I'm almost for certain he's wanting or expecting it to behave like a prefab. The only thing prefab about this is the transform relationship to relative to the world space as far as like saving it. But outside of that, it's not a Godot scene. It's not a Unity prefab. Just let that click in.
Again, heathen behavior. You have to manually select each individual item on the screen like God intended. Even though it has been 11 years, we still believe that it's not right to be able to use the selection box in neither the Blueprint viewport.
Okay, so this is 5.6 is what he's...
nor the content browser. For that is not the Unreal way. As you know, in Unreal, you have your main level viewport where you place your game assets, and a very popular type of asset in Unreal are blueprints, which is what is known in the industry as a prefab. Not to be confused with Unreal Blueprints visual scripting language or the blueprints classes such as game modes and level blueprints, which are a separate thing from widget.
Well, and animation blueprints, and speak
blueprints. Now, in order to avoid any confusion, all of those are collectively referred to as blueprints in order to keep things clear for new developers. The one that we care about, however, is the prefab meaning of this, which is a collection of multiple assets grouped as one. These prefabs can be edited.
Well, that's a scene, my guy. But, you know, I'm not here to correct you.
And they come with their own viewport, where you'll be spending a lot of time manipulating assets around. And if you thought that the level viewport and the prefab viewport would work the same, you are probably a sinful Unity user. In our case, if you need to select multiple objects in the level viewport, simply hold Shift and click on each object, and they will light up with an orange outline. But in the prefab viewport, you guessed it, Shift-click doesn't work because that's old news. It's Control, and after you select multiple objects, they also light up with the same orange outline.
They don't. Well, depending on a few different things, they may.
Not all of them though, just some, depending on what type of objects they are. Let's say you want to duplicate these objects.
Oh no, he's about to do the duplication. So for anyone who's ever like dealt with custom collision building, like there's a hotkey here, which I think is Control D. Then if you're in collision, I think it's Control W. Anyway, the hotkey for collision building is different, and then like the behavior for this viewport versus like duplicating and moving around collisions or selecting multiple collisions, it's a nightmare. But hopefully he covers that. It's interesting.
Once you spend a solid minute handpicking all of them, simply press.
Now, what I would do, I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't use the viewport to select this. I would shift select the hierarchy to
Control D to duplicate, at which point you will notice that the engine deselects all of them but one. So you get the joy of hunting for them here in the hierarchy panel, where the order...
Yeah, where you probably should have just started, because that's what they want you to do, or at least from my experience, that's the way that works better.
Of assets and who they are parented to is very important. So when you drag a new asset in here, there is a blue outline highlighting exactly,
but it is not gonna drop it exactly where it's highlighting. Yeah, get ready for that.
which component your dragged object will not be placed under because you naturally wanted it to go under whatever you selected 3 minutes ago. Unreal Engine is not only free to use, but it's also open source, with over 738 contributors on GitHub spending their time by making incremental improvements to the engine. Improvements such as the robust Ctrl-Z undo function. Unreal developers love the undo function because it undoes any good feelings that might be distracting in a game development environment. If you're in the level viewport and you accidentally select the wrong thing, it's okay, you can undo and we got you. But if you're in the prefab viewport, you better learn how to stop making mistakes. If your playhead is on a specific animation frame, undo and the playhead is back to frame 1. Now, if we move on to an animation montage, actually the timeline is a bit small, so we can simply resize it by finding this blue bar, grab it from anywhere and simply pull up. Mistakes can happen all the time while editing animations. Let's say we want to copy this sound notification here. We click on it, copy, move the playhead where we want to paste, and paste. Oh, sorry, that didn't work because we dragged the playhead from here. Instead, we should have dragged it from here. Now we can paste and oh, the notification is all the way there. No worries, simply paste again and now it's on the first frame. That happens sometimes. All the times. But who knows, you might actually want them there. So if you want to quickly preview your animation, simply hit undo and the animation will start playing on its own. If you want to pause it, simply press space. But don't try to press space in a retargeting animation because space simply doesn't do anything. Or for UI animations, if you select one, space also doesn't do anything. You know, keeping you on your toes. And speaking of UI animations, if you are working on one and made a mistake, undo and you're no longer working on that animation. This is...
Oh god, I don't mean to laugh. I've been bit by this so many times. Yeah. Don't ever undo when you're modifying a widget animation. Ever. Like, the pain is real.
Is the engine telling you that maybe you should take a break. Now, we can stop here with the first part of this onboarding video, but before we go, remember to save any changes you've made in the editor settings in case you would like to have these preferences synchronized across multiple computers or projects. Once you open the editor settings, you will notice a very convenient export button that exports your settings in a single config file per category. So don't forget to go through each of the 79 categories and individually export their settings, otherwise your changes will be lost. And in the unfortunate event of that happening, you can simply reset to defaults, which only works if you happened to press set defaults before you changed anything. Otherwise, this button does nothing, because setting defaults by default would not be the Unreal way. This concludes our first Unreal on... Okay, real talk. I've been using this engine for a little over a year and I actually love it. But it's very frustrating how it completely takes you out of your flow state because of silly inconsistencies like the ones in this video, which are like 10% of the kind of problems I've stumbled upon so far. The problem is that developers just get used to these over time and don't see them as problems anymore, while the engine becomes less and less approachable to new users. It's very discouraging to shop for an engine for your next project and end up with this feeling of instability and inconsistency in the tool that you're planning on using for a multi-year complex project that you might financially depend on. I've been keeping huge lists of these problems, so if anyone from Unreal is watching this, please reach out because I would love to help you actually make this engine better. I'll shut up for now, but there might be a second video later.
Yeah. So, I love videos like this because for someone who has been using Unreal for a very long time, I've gone, like he said, I've grown accustomed to a lot of these quirks. And, you know, this is something that a colleague and I have like gotten into like friendly debates about, like when you've grown accustomed to quirks or like behaviors that you're not expecting as a brand new user, like for someone to come into Unreal very new who's never used it before, like say, you know, Unity does their craziness and people are like, okay, I'm gonna give Unreal a shot, and they come over here and they expect things to behave normally, things that if you go into Unity or you go into to Godot, you take it for granted. Like like the consistency and the operation of the UI, you kind of like feel like things should just behave that way, and you take the kind of the ease of use, like that's what Unity is touted for. You take that ease of use for granted, and then you come over to Unreal and you're like, why don't things work the same way, or why aren't things consistent in this manner? And for people who've been in the Unreal camp for 10 plus years, whenever a Unity person says, "Oh, well, Unreal's got this steep learning curve and things just don't feel the same, and like prefabs don't work the same, and things aren't consistent. The UI changes based on scope." All of those things are legitimate feedback, and like this fella here states, like, I also would like work to be done. Now it's going to make veterans uncomfortable because it's going to change the fact that they have this muscle memory around broken behavior. But I do believe that like the part of the reason why Unreal probably hasn't put a lot of emphasis on it is because the engine's freaking huge, and it's being adopted by thousands of people across multiple industries, and that's happening regardless of the little quirks that it has. But for every indie or solo developer or small studio that picks up Unity or Godot, especially Godot, if you've come from Unreal and you have a preconceived notion about how things should work, yeah, you're probably going to be like, "Ooh, something about this is weird," or "I don't like this," or whatever. But you could also be like me and a group of developers in the Wild Ox Studios family that has been like, "Man, this is really freaking awesome." And once you understand the concepts of what Godot is doing and its hierarchy and everything, then like you start realizing a lot of these pain points just simply disappear, and that it doesn't have to be this way. But that's for people who maybe haven't had experience in Unity before going to Unreal and then going to Godot. I've had I've been fortunate enough to play in all of these development environments, and even tinking around a little bit with like Source and Crytek or CryEngine. So yeah, like he said, I love Unreal. This isn't me bashing it or anything else, but I found this video entertaining. I figured I would share it with you guys, and hopefully, like he said, even though they're swamped with massive amounts of other things that they're probably needing to do within Unreal performance, it would be nice whenever they do spend an entire minor release introducing new UI features, 5.6, that they go back and revisit some of the consistencies between each one of the viewports and some of the behavior and some of the quirks that have remained broken. Some of these things that he went over, like the animation Control Z disappearing. I think that started in like 422, 420, maybe 420. That it's just been problematic since then. The inverse mouse control based on perspective, that's existed I think since 425 or 426, and it's been a regressive bug that has existed based on like how they've dealt with the camera and gimbal lock mechanics, etc. But most Unreal Engine users have found more efficient ways to do that. Like we'll hotkey into a side, front, top, whatever perspective, and then multi-select. As far as working within the blueprint editor and multi-select working, yeah, just ignore the viewport. Use the hierarchy to multi-select objects, shift select or control select objects. You're gonna have a much better time doing that. But till next time, guys, I don't want to go long. Hit that like and subscribe button. Consider joining the Wild Ox Studios family and the Wild Ox Studios Discord. Yeah, We're an awesome group of guys. We're an awesome group of people, and we spanned both Godot and Unreal, and they're always like someone's always around willing to help. So until next time, happy developing and toodles.